The Camino Portugal holds the distinction as the second most popular path within the broader Camino de Santiago network, with only the much longer Camino Francés attracting more pilgrims each year. Departing from Porto, the Portugal Camino presents travelers with three main route options: the central route, the coastal route, and the littoral way. Each of these paths offer its own unique experiences and breathtaking scenery, allowing pilgrims to choose a journey that best matches their preferences. The coastal and central routes stand out as the most favored by those undertaking the pilgrimage. These routes are celebrated for their distinct landscapes, cultural landmarks, and the varied experiences they provide along the way. The coastal route of the Camino Portugal traces the Atlantic coastline, offering travelers stunning views of the ocean throughout much of the journey. This path is especially appealing to those who appreciate the beauty of coastal landscapes and wish to experience the refreshing sea air as they walk. While the route is renowned for its scenic vistas, it also passes through some industrial areas, which can contrast with the natural beauty found elsewhere along the way. Despite these occasional urban stretches, the coastal route remains a popular choice among pilgrims, particularly those drawn to the allure of the ocean and the unique atmosphere of Portugal's seaside towns. The central route of the Camino follows an inland path that winds through some of Portugal's most historic towns, including Barcelos and Ponte de Lima. This path is renowned for its deep historical and cultural roots, as it traces ancient Roman roads that once connected these regions. As pilgrims make their way along this route, they experience not only the charm of centuries-old towns, but also the layers of history embedded in the very road beneath their feet. As the journey progresses, the coastal route eventually converges with the central route at Redondela, Spain. From this point, all paths unite and lead pilgrims onward toward the ultimate destination of Santiago de Compostela. This merging of routes underscores the central route's significance, serving as a gathering point for travelers who have chosen different beginnings but share a common goal. The Camino Portugal is deeply intertwined with the legacy of St. James the Apostle. As the route unfolds, it passes through various towns where St. James is believed to have lived and preached, adding a profound spiritual dimension to the journey. This connection to the Apostle adds a meaningful layer to the pilgrimage experience, inviting travelers to reflect on both the historical and religious importance of the path. For my own pilgrimage, I decided to follow the central route. This choice allowed me to experience the spiritual richness associated with St. James while traveling the inland path through towns that hold historical and religious significance for pilgrims. The Sé Cathedral stands at the center of Porto's historic district, serving as a prominent landmark and an enduring symbol of the city's rich cultural heritage. Its architectural splendor is highlighted through a remarkable blend of Romanesque, Gothic, and Baroque styles, making the cathedral both impressive and memorable for all who visit. The building's grandeur and unique design contribute greatly to the atmosphere of the surrounding area, drawing the admiration of visitors and pilgrims alike. For many embarking on Camino Portugal, the Sé Cathedral is recognized as a traditional starting point of the journey. Its central location and historical importance make it an essential part of the pilgrimage experience. Pilgrims gather here to begin their route towards Santiago de Compostela, marking the cathedral as a meaningful place of departure that sets the tone for the spiritual and historical journey ahead. Although my initial plan was to begin the pilgrimage the following day, I found myself arriving in central Porto around 10 a.m. Inspired by the energy of the city and eager to start, I chose to set out immediately. Thus, I began my walk to Moriera. The walk from the cathedral was a maze of streets and poorly marked. Once away from the central city, the walk was almost entirely paved with stretches of asphalt, tile, and cobblestone. Unbeknownst to me, Moriera is located right next to the airport. In hindsight, I realized that starting the walk from the airport would have been more logical and convenient, a small oversight in my planning. I discovered that there was no albergue available for pilgrims and the local hostel was booked. So I stayed at a hotel adjacent to the airport for the night. Nice, but staying in a hotel was not in the plan. The next morning, I set out for Villarrico. As I made my way, I must have missed the correct route. I did not encounter another pilgrim throughout the day and began to feel lost. I realized that Google Maps was not as reliable in Portugal as it was in Spain. Despite the confusion, the walk took me through several old towns, offering a glimpse of the local character and scenery. The route itself was almost entirely pavement and cobblestone. Getting closer to my destination, I found myself walking along a two-lane highway. I was concerned for my safety, certain that this was not the intended trail. I finally arrived in town. I arrived at the albergue early and had to wait until they opened. The cost was 15 euros, which included cookies and refreshments and cereal in the morning. Wine and yogurt was available for purchase. It was typical of many albergues that I stayed in during my previous walk on the Camino Frances in 2023. The next morning, I started at 7:20. It was cloudy with a temperature of 61 degrees with high humidity. Glad to be off the road, I came across the D. Camino Bridge, built in 1125. It was built to last. I also wondered what stories the walls of these old houses could tell. I finally encountered another pilgrim as I walked through these layered fields. This is a rest stop along the way. I arrived in Barcelinhos about 3:30. Temperature was 67 with a humidity of 71%. As I left this morning, I crossed another ancient bridge across the Cavado River and through the town of Barcelos on my way to Ponte de Lima. An old cemetery and beautiful countryside. Encountering pilgrims along the way. Since Father's Day would be celebrated during my walk, I brought a photo of my dad to honor him for all he did for me. I told him to relax and enjoy. I would carry the load for him, just like he did for me. I walked across Rio Lima over another ancient bridge to my albergue in Ponte de Lima. The scenery today was beautiful, but I knew in 7.5 miles I would face a steep 2.7-mile climb. The climb started here. From the top, it was all downhill to my albergue in Rubias. My original plan was to walk to Valencia, which is on the border of Spain. It was a beautiful walk. From here, I could see the town of Valencia ahead. As I entered Valencia and walked through the old fort at the border and the tourist section, I decided to cross the bridge into Tui, Spain. This bridge took me across the Rio Minho into Spain. The path to the albergue took me through the old part of Tui. From here, I could see across the Rio Minho to the old fort in Valenca, Portugal. As I visited a cathedral nearby, I bought a new hat and had dinner with Jorge Soros, who lives near Lisbon. He was on his third Camino trek and offered valuable information along the way. I left Tui at 7 a.m. Once I left town, it was a gorgeous walk. I encountered a cafe along the way and was pleasantly surprised when I saw they served my favorite Camino pastry, Torta de Santiago. I enjoyed it with a café americano. Continuing my walk, my original plan was a 9-mile trek to Oporino. I arrived at Oporino at 11:15, too early to check into an albergue, so I had lunch and decided to walk to Redondela. It became a very hot day, 88 degrees with 80% humidity. I was walking on asphalt and cobblestone. At Redondela, the state-run albergue was permanently closed, so the next albergue I could find was 2 miles out of town at Cesantes. There, I enjoyed a great meal with other pilgrims from England, Portugal, the Czech Republic, Texas, and Holland. It was here where I started to feel pain on the sole of my right foot. The morning walk took me up a hill overseeing the Ria de Viga Lake. Then I met the youngest peregrina on the Camino, Maria Flores. Her grandfather and her parents were taking her on her first Camino walk, or should I say, ride. Then the trail went down to the old part of the town of Arcade. Before climbing up into beautiful forested country. The blister on the sole of my right foot was becoming more uncomfortable. I had moleskin on it, but I could feel the pain. I left Pontevedra early to beat the heat. Soon I was in beautiful country again. These are a couple of pilgrims singing along with the local talent. Once again, I encountered Maria Flores with her grandfather and mother. After a while, I arrived at a cafe where I enjoyed breakfast before continuing. My foot was giving me more problems and was slowing me down. As peregrinos who walked the coastal route joined the central route, there was more pilgrim traffic. Pilgrim on bikes became more common. I arrived at my Nvidia and noticed blood on my sock, so I found a pharmacy and was told to put some ointment to prevent an infection and wrap it with gauze. The blister had opened up to about 1.5 inches long and 1/4 inch wide. I believe the heat of the asphalt and cobblestone, combined with my waterproof shoes, which were hot, caused the problem. I was advised not to soak my feet in this natural hot springs, but some Asian pilgrims sure seemed to enjoy it. I left this morning at 6:25 to beat the heat and knowing I was walking slower due to my blister. It was so close, I just walked in pain, knowing I was nearing the finish. I was looking forward to getting to Padron to see the Cathedral of St. James. It is near here where St. James gave his first sermon in Iberia. I crossed the bridge over the Rio Sal behind the cathedral. Surrounded by lush vegetation is the Fountain of Carme. It is known for its historical and cultural importance. The site is often associated with local legends and tradition and serves as a point of interest for those exploring the rich heritage of the region. Nearby was my albergue for the night. My original plan was to walk from Padron to Santiago de Compostela, but my painful blister convinced me to do a shorter walk to Miadolia and finish the last 4.5 miles the next day. I said goodbye to Jorge as he was walking all the way to Santiago and would be returning home. I was soon in traffic, then out of it. Then back into traffic, then back into the countryside. It got busier as most walkers at this point were going to finish at Santiago de Compostela. The albergue in Millaorda, a suburb of Santiago, had the most modern albergue I have ever stayed in. I left Miadora at 7 a.m. Temperature, 58 degrees. The final walk was through the old section of Miradora, under a couple of freeways, and then to the outskirts of Santiago. I made my way to the Cathedral of Santiago. I arrived at the cathedral at 9:15, where they were setting up for the Finish to a Marathon. I had finished my Camino Portugal, in spite of my blister and a few pounds lighter. I presented my Camino passport to the Camino office, received my Compostela, and received my mileage certificate. I made my way through Santiago to my albergue to spend the night, and next day took a bus to Porto, Portugal, where I spent a couple of days before beginning my journey home. As I grew older, I found myself contemplating future walking journeys that might be shorter in length. Highlighted in yellow is the Camino Inglés, also known as the Celtic Way. It is 75 miles in length. It begins in Ferrol, Spain, and it ends in Santiago de Compostela. Its reputation for combining manageable mileage with cultural and scenic richness makes it an appealing option for my next adventure. Until then, I wish you a buen camino in your life's journey.